Buenas tardes, everyone, and good afternoon. Welcome to today's Career Day with Freddie Mac. I'm Antonio Tijerino with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation, and today's program is part of our year-long commitment with Freddie Mac to connect our network of young professionals and students with personal and professional development in the workforce through our LOFT or Latinx on the Fast Track program. Today, we'll provide you with a broader scope of industries and companies, access to resources, and also inspiration and inside information through real talk like you're going to hear today. And besides the real talk, we want to provide you with real opportunities for your internships, mentorships, fellowships, full-time positions, networking, among other pathways. And I'm thrilled to introduce you to what a career at Freddie Mac actually looks like, straight from Freddie Mac employees who will also share their personal journeys professionally and personally. We are taping this session, so the content will live on our social media channels as well as distributed to your larger network. And we encourage you to share it with others in your network that have your financial background. Joining us today are Freddie Mac's talent acquisition team, who are ready to answer any of your questions as well as hear your comments. So please make sure to set your comments in the chat to all audience and not to the default that just says panelists, because we want everybody to hear you. Make sure to submit your questions in the Q&A window found at the bottom of the Zoom bar. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Linda Lang, who is the Executive Coordinator Professional in Multifamily Capital Markets and Operational Manager in the OLA Business Resource Group at Freddie Mac, which we're going to hear a little more about OLA. Linda.
Thank you, Antonio. It's a pleasure to be here. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. My name is Linda Lang, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you to this event, Meaningful Impact, Innovating for the Future, co-sponsored by Freddie Mac. I'm an executive coordinator for Freddie Mac's Multifamily Capital Markets Department, and I'm also an operations manager for the Latino Hispanic Business Resource Group called OLA. One of the main reasons Freddie Mac has tenured employees of 10 plus years is because of our purpose-filled mission. Freddie Mac's mission is to make home possible for millions of families across America by providing stability, liquidity, and affordability. We do not directly lend money to homeowners. However, our work is based in the secondary mortgage market where we purchase mortgage loans and mortgage-related securities. Today, I'm also representing our Freddie Mac OLA Business Resource Group. So who are we? So in 1999, Freddie Mac instituted OLA, which stands for the Hispanic Organization for Leadership and Achievement, which has provided an inclusive environment where all employees can share experiences and achieve professional growth while promoting a greater understanding of the diversity in the Latino Hispanic culture and the value this diversity provides to Freddie Mac. So how do we operationalize our mission? We use these three pillars: attract, develop, and embrace. And we have leaders in each pillar to create and lead initiatives throughout the year. In attract, we have two focuses. One is external recruitment. We recruit Freddie Mac employees to our OLA BRG, and two, our external recruitment, where we recruit others to become a Freddie Mac employee. In develop, we equip our OLA members for leadership and advancement. And in embrace, we create experiences to enhance all employees' understanding of the Latino Hispanic culture. So in 2020, one of our most successful pillars was attract. Our attract leaders partnered up with Freddie Mac's college hire analyst programs, the Office of Inclusive Engagement, and 40 plus universities. Throughout the year, our leaders had 6 college hire programs and 20 info sessions to start recruitment. What was the outcome? We were able to reach over 210 students, 74 students applied, 18 were invited to Freddie Mac Day, 15 offers were extended, and 11 new Latinos were hired. Because of the leadership in our attract pillar, last year we increased Latino college hires more than 5 times since 2019. Meet Estefania and Elijah, 2 Freddie Mac OLA leaders. First, I will share about Estefania. She's the one on the right with the white blouse. Remember the 11 Latino college students that were hired in the Attract pillar? Well, Estefania was the brains behind that. She had the vision, the plan, led a team, and made it all happen. Now, 11 Latinos were positively impacted to have full-time jobs during a worldwide pandemic. I'd like to share a quote from a senior director at Freddie Mac about what she had to say about Estefania. And I quote, "I wanted to reach out to you and let you know that I loved the interview that you did at the Latinx Leadership Conference. I was so very impressed by your maturity, poise, and confidence, and most importantly, by all the outreach work that you are doing. As a mother of college-age daughters, I think you're a great role model and an inspiration for young people. I know that a lot of times we as parents don't fully know or understand the impact of all the things that our children are involved with. I sincerely hope your parents know of your work and are proud of you as I am just watching you. Keep up the good work, and I'll be keeping an eye out for you as a future leader in our community and country," end quote. Second, meet Elijah. In this picture, he is receiving Freddie Mac CEO Award from our former president and CEO. The CEO Award is a prestigious award given to those who do outstanding work within the enterprise. I'd like to share a quote from Elijah about his experience being part of the Ola BRG leadership team. And I quote, "I largely became part of the Ola leadership team because I got to connect, collaborate, and meet each of you. I'll be honest, when I first decided to join the Ola leadership team, I was nervous. And I was nervous because I always felt that when it came to Latino things, I wasn't enough. Not knowing Spanish often made me feel disconnected or distant from the broader culture. And because of that, I had this notion that there was only one way or narrative to be Latino. Above anything else, this group helped me understand that I was wrong. You all helped me to feel connected and empowered in my Latino identity. Even if you didn't know it, you created that inclusion for me. And I thank you for that. And I encourage you to keep doing it," end quote. Now meet more leaders in our Ola team. So these bright leaders are the ones who drive the pillars to make lasting impact on our Ola members across Freddie Mac. In this very short video, you will see only a quarter of the events we've created in 2019 and in 2020. You've now heard of who we are and what we do. This year's Ola theme is Ola Impact. So I'm encouraging you all to join us. Like, this could be you working on Freddie Mac's mission to make home ownership and rental housing more accessible and affordable to millions of American families. Join us. This could be you, an Ola member building community with us. Join us. This could be you, an Ola leader, innovating and collaborating to create programs that impact our Ola members to attract Latino talent, embrace them, and develop them for advancement. So you could be part of the Ola Impact. So hang on tight. You will now hear from other Latino professionals of their Freddie Mac experience and how they have made an impact, followed by a Q&A. So I will see you on the Q&A side. I will now turn it over to your president and CEO, Antonio Tijerino.
Thank you, Linda. Attract, develop, and embrace. I like that. And it's working, obviously. But hey, I also think it's really important that you address Latinx identity, which is a really complicated thing and needs to be handled that way. So that's very nuanced. Next, we have a special panel with Freddie Mac leadership to have candid conversations with you about Freddie Mac's culture, community impact, and broad opportunities across various fields and jobs. So joining us, we have Vanessa Correa, multifamily marketing communications senior professional, Adan Rivas, business analyst, tech lead, and Janiece Worley, senior account executive, single family sales and relationship management. Thank you all for joining us. All right, I'm gonna kick it off now. So each of you tell us how long you've been with Freddie Mac, and can you share a little bit about what you currently do in your roles? Because we want our audience to know how broad these roles are at Freddie Mac.
Sure, I'll get started because my name is Correa. I came first alphabetically. Thank you to the foundation. I know a lot of work went into this event and I am super grateful to be part of it. I work in the multifamily division at Freddie Mac, which is financing apartment housing, rental housing, and commercial mortgage. And I do advertising, branding, and marketing for the group, which involves a lot of website projects, social media, working with vendors on search engine marketing and all of those things under my hat here. And I love it. So I'm glad to be here.
Adan, you'd be next if we're going alphabetically.
Yes, hi everyone. Adan Rivas, I work in the single family finance division here in Freddie Mac. And I can tell you I've been here for 16 years and they have been to me like a very short time, even though it sounds like a lot of time. And it's by far the company that I stayed the longest. And the reason for it is because of the culture of the company and the very diverse force and the opportunity to work with very smart people.
So good afternoon, buenas tardes a todos. My name is Janiece Worley. I have been with Freddie Mac for a little over 22 years. In my current role as a senior account executive for single family, I primarily focus on managing relationships with regional lenders in the Mid-Atlantic region of the United States. My current role is to manage our overall relationship, client relationship, that is, with all of our clients in the Mid-Atlantic region. I am the primary contact for customer needs, including joint strategic initiatives, products, programs, negotiated contract terms, and consultative decisions. I do have a dedicated team that supports me and my 25 clients in the Mid-Atlantic, ranging from about 7 subject matter experts. I'm kind of the quarterback, if you will, where I juggle the questions that come in, and I ensure that my team supports me and my clients in not only providing quality answers, but in a timely, efficient way. So I am the face of Freddie Mac. I'm also the face of my clients, representing them and being their advocates for this industry. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
That's great. And I have to say too, that it's really nice as I see the squares here to see a diverse group of Freddie Mac team members. Because it's important to us and it's important to our audience. As Latinos, we look like everyone and everyone looks like us, and all of you look like everyone. So I just wanted to mention that it's a really good juxtaposition of all of you here. Let me go to Vanessa. As someone who recently joined Freddie Mac, can you share a little more about your transition and the onboarding process? Because that's something that I remember the jobs that I had. They're different in every place. And sometimes you feel completely discombobulated as you start, and other places you feel very comfortable. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So yes, it is just under 3 years. So I certainly have not been here quite as long as Adan and Janiece. But the 2 main differences for me in terms of just transitioning into this company, marketing is my second career. I started out actually in publishing. I was a book editor for a few years. I did my master's in publishing at NYU. I grew up in New York City, very exposed to corporate people, for lack of a better phrase. I just called them the suits, on the subway. They seemed to be very soulless and to really only care about one thing, which was money and stepping on people to make money. So this is the first time that I've been in a corporate, enterprise company with close to 10,000 employees, a headquarters and various offices around the country. Prior to this, I've only ever worked at very small nonprofits or small businesses owned by, individuals. So for me, transitioning into Freddie, I love what you said about feeling discombobulated because number one, I swore I would never work at a soulless corporation. So I was surprised, 10 years later to find today Vanessa, 36-year-old Vanessa, very different from 26-year-old Vanessa. But secondly, I had no background in finance either. So it was really a surprise to me, and all the surprises were good surprises. Firstly, experiencing orientation, it's like mandatory. You know, who likes orientation? There's like a brain dump. You get all this information thrown at you and you feel overwhelmed. That didn't happen here. It was very interactive. It was very organized. I think Freddie is the most organized place I've ever worked. I'm not right or left brained. I'm both. I'm creative, but I need structure. So that was great in terms of finding my footing, joining a large company, joining a new industry. And secondly, what really blew my mind was that at the end of the orientation day, there was a volunteerism activity, right? So none of us are just one thing. Like we get lumped together into groups by different people who are trying to achieve different things. If you want to sell, you know, detergent to moms, or you want to sell, you know, sports car to men having a midlife crisis, like we get boxed in. And so, yes, I'm Latina, but I'm also a lot of other things. And one thing that's really important to me is volunteerism. And I had no idea the culture at Freddie before I joined. And just to, you know, that's a really big statement that they're making. Like this is a part on the schedule that we've put aside time for you during work hours to do some volunteerism and give back to the community. So those were really great things for me, you know, just transitioning into this company and learning more about the culture as we went on. There's also two other things that I want to mention quickly. Freddie Mac has a very specific focus on mental health, and this was my first experience with that. I started working when I was 14 in the Bronx, and then I worked the entire time. My bachelor's I did in Michigan. I worked 40 hours a week and did a double major. I've never worked anywhere where people are like, if you need to take care of your mental health, here's these resources, here's this qualified professional, here's these, you know, you can take this time off. Like we want you to take care of you. That was a great transitioning into this company, and having that messaging, you know, is super important for me. And lastly, just the culture of feedback from employees is really, you know, it's a large ship to steer, but there's constant loop of employee feedback. For example, we have something called the Rising Leaders Competition every year. The best, you know, the winning idea of that competition is from employees, and it gets implemented. It gets a budget, and it gets buy-in from senior leaders. And then those things that people are saying like, hey, we work here, we think this should happen, actually happen. So it's been very, very much like a totally different world for me since I joined.
So your segment right there is really interesting, because we're going to have to extrapolate that and send it out to our network. That was really powerful. And I just have to tell you that the mental health part, for a company to care about your mental health, even to acknowledge that it's a part of being productive as a human being, let alone as someone working there, especially this past year, which has had a huge impact on our communities. Also the community service, which I think is important to carve that out. So we're well-rounded employees. And lastly, I just want to say that I feel like taking my suit off now after you called me soulless. And, but just please know that I've been wearing sweatpants since March of last year. So I'm both right now. Adan, as someone who has been at Freddie Mac for 16 years, I can't imagine that you've witnessed a lot of changes at the company, including leadership. Can you share what going through those changes present to you? And also, sometimes these changes are taken for granted, that it actually impacts you personally and professionally in terms of the work that you're doing.
Yes, thank you, Antonio. Absolutely. So I've been here and I have seen several CEOs through our period here in Freddie Mac. And to me, the key thing has been that it's always been challenging and an opportunity to learn and to do better. Even though there has been times of uncertainty, as you all might remember, during 2007 and 2008, we had that financial crisis, which was very challenging for everyone, including the GSEs. The key has been to stay engaged and feel that we belong to an organization that is really doing more than just doing the secondary market. We are really an important part of making sure that we provide low-cost funding for families. We really care about what is affordability for houses. And having that as, while you're doing your work and you can relate to that goal is what makes it more satisfying. And that's why the 16 years that I've been here, they have been, or at least they feel a very short time for me. When somebody was telling me, oh, it's your 15th anniversary, it was really, I was surprised. I couldn't believe it. And then I also want to touch on an interesting topic, Antonio. Like in most financial institutions, technology plays a key role. So what I do in single family finance is we have to be responsible of change management with many of our systems and applications and how that benefits the business. I am completely passionate about that because to me, coming from a technical background, if you don't see the use of that to a better use of our business goals, then there is not really much purpose of it. So here in Freddie, we really go into different technologies, and the main goal is to make sure that it's serving for a business goal. And just seeing and being part of it is what it's been a good part of what I've been doing all this time. And just being passionate about it is a great opportunity to learn technology, to learn data, and to apply that to our financial goals in this division.
Thank you, Adan. That's really helpful to hear. And all companies have ups and downs. And I remember the time that you're talking about. Then, of course, we revisited it just this past year. So we can always expect that. Janiece, you actually joined Freddie Mac straight from college 22 years ago, assuming you were 16 at the time?
Yes. Assuming I'm 16. Was 16 at the time, yes.
Age don't age, I like to say. So, shout out, by the way, to Freddie Mac's retention focus. You're an embodiment of a workforce environment that people want to stay in for so long. But can you share about your experience joining the team and how it seems that you've had an entire career at the same company, which I'm assuming, to keep your interest, allowed you to move around in the company?
Yes, absolutely. So the environment at Freddie Mac, especially in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, has evolved tremendously over the past 22 years. Something I love about single family, which is the division that I'm under, is that our focus is not only on our internal diversity and inclusion, but also on making a difference externally in the equitable and affordable housing space. We have recently created an equitable housing team whose goal is to address significant barriers to home ownership and wealth creation for communities of color. Obviously, a lot of us want to own our home, a home one day, and so we do provide the tools and the products and programs needed to assist our lenders out there so that they in turn can help the potential borrowers. Additionally, single family specifically places an emphasis on the Hispanic borrower experience by partnering with National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals to support and promote their yearly State of Hispanic Home Ownership report. The report does a deep dive into how the U.S. Hispanic population is faring with respect to attainment of homeownership in America. This data that I'm talking about is very crucial to the equitable housing team and their efforts to address the barriers unique to Hispanic borrowers when purchasing a home. The single family division team also leverages this data, and it's all about data at Freddie Mac, which is awesome, to develop content and educational resources highlighting homeownership challenges and barriers unique to Hispanic borrowers. We also work to translate content, resources, and education courses into Spanish through the limited English proficiency. And I encourage our customers to provide these valuable resources to prospective Hispanic borrowers in order to help them achieve their dream of homeownership. And so for me, seeing this over the 22 years is huge. We did not have this translation ability, if you will, internally to provide such data and information to our clients, which are banks and mortgage bankers out there, who in then turn can help the consumer in the market realize their dream of homeownership.
You know, it's interesting too. I actually have a call that's being set up right now with Gary Acosta at NAREP. So I'll let him know you gave him a shout out.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
He's a real leader and a real visionary too.
Yep.
So going back to Vanessa, can you share about your experience joining Freddie Mac and any resources or opportunities available to you to support you in your role and professional development? You talked earlier about the mental health part and the community service part. What other tools are available to you and especially the professional development side that allow you to grow and stay at a company for 22 years?
Right. So at the end of the day, a company is able to offer employees what they have based on the nature of their business, what it is, what product or service or what role they fill. But frankly, sometimes it's also just about size. These smaller nonprofits and small businesses that I have worked at in the past, just as a simple fact of the matter, did not have the resources and the bandwidth to provide what Freddie provides. And so for me, the number one resource of Freddie Mac is people. As soon as I started working here, my friends were congratulating me, and then a personal friend of mine that I know separately for a couple of years in the area, she was like, "Oh, my friend Linda Lang works there. You have got to meet her." And then once you meet Linda, you meet everybody. Kaboom! Like her superpower is connecting people. She knows everybody, and everybody knows her. And so meeting Linda and then joining Ola immediately, I think we are the largest or the second largest of the business resource groups in the company. It was really kind of like, wow, okay, now I have this whole network of people who can teach me about finance because I didn't know anything about it. I have this whole network of people who can explain to me things that seem odd because I've only ever worked at small companies, or help me understand things better, or show me which way is HQ4 and HQ1. If you're at McLean, there's these huge buildings and the bridges between them, and you can easily get lost. So I would say that the main resource here is people who are amazing. We're 3 people on this panel right now, but there are a lot of Hispanics and Latinos here across all the divisions and across different job functions. But secondly, I am really impressed by the internal content available to all Freddie Mac employees. We have something called Freddie Mac University, or FMU for short, which is really great. They're constantly updating it and improving it to give employees on-demand resources for development. So whatever it is that you want to learn about, you can always go in that interface and pick classes. They have proprietary information that's created by Freddie Mac, but then they also pull in from very reputable sources. There's TED Talks in there. There's seminars about how to open your mindset and think in a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. There's just that in general. There's budget for me if I want to take continuing education classes or anything that's relevant to my role. I can always go to my boss and say, hey, I saw this class offered by the Mortgage Bankers Association. Can I take it? There's budget for that. Pre-COVID, there was in-person seminars. There are a slew of, again, subject matter experts who are not necessarily Freddie employees, but Freddie goes out of their way to contract these people to bring them in, again, during the workday, and you set aside that hour and you take a seminar on how to give a better speech or a better presentation or learn a new technology or a new SaaS or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, I can't think of a thing that isn't offered here.
Thanks for that. It's good to learn about those resources Freddie Mac's providing. I just have to tell everybody in the audience, not all companies do that. I've worked in a lot of different companies in my career, and they don't all invest in the employees like that. And I have, and again, going back to the mental health part and the community the community service part, it's really a well-rounded way of supporting your employees. So can you actually share with us what it's like to work in the finance division at Freddie Mac, which is probably very different than where Vanessa works and where Janiece works? It's as if you're in a whole different world.
Sometimes I feel the same, Antonio. Yes, finance is an organization that is there to support what we do in multiple business segments, right? So there are 3 segments in Freddie Mac. One will be single family, which is the main one, of course. You have multifamily as well as ICM. So we are aligned with those segments to support what is related to performing accounting and release our financial statements. But often what happens is that in finance, we become experts on the business processes that is happening with those segments, as well as getting very familiar with the data. So it's not uncommon to see people who are working on finance and they end up doing more than just financial analysis and accounting. I mean, they get really ingrained into the operations of the company as well as understanding the data. So to me, coming to work for finance is a great opportunity for people who are looking to get a better perspective of the segment that they are supporting. And then you also have the opportunity to rotate. So right now, we are actually kicking off a program where we give opportunity to senior levels, professional levels, where they can be on a particular job for a certain amount of time, and then they go to a different group. And that is unique because that gives the person to the opportunity to grow. They will be learning into different groups and they will be becoming more well-rounded. So those are great instances for career development in finance.
Thank you for that perspective, Adan. And it does, juxtapose with your other 2 panelists and colleagues. It really offers a very different career path within the same company. So I'm going to go to Vanessa, that being said, because you're actually in a role that before I started doing what I'm doing now, I was in. I worked in PR marketing. I was in corporate communications at Nike in Oregon. So now that, and I wouldn't have thought of myself working at a company like Freddie Mac because I would have thought there wasn't a fit, but you fit. So can you, now that you have 3 years as a veteran at Freddie Mac, tell us a little more about your previous roles in your career and how they compare with Freddie Mac. And I really mean that. That's why we're doing this, is so somebody like me before, when I was in the middle of my career, that I have a better vision as to what opportunities exist at Freddie Mac that actually would embrace you and you can grow in. That's what's cool about doing this exact program that we're doing right now. So talk to us a little bit about what you were doing before and that transition to Freddie Mac. I'm assuming that it wasn't an easy thing to visualize, and then all of a sudden here you are and on a panel talking about how great it is.
Literally never had any intention of joining finance. And then housing finance is a subset, right? It's a niche part of finance in general. So I would have never, if you had told me 15 years ago, you're going to work in marketing, at Freddie Mac Housing Finance Corporation, I would be like, you got the wrong girl. Growing up in New York City is rough. People get away with a lot there just because it's a tough town, and it's kind of like, survival of the strongest or the fittest. I've seen some things in my day, even at work, that were kind of like, wow, okay. I've had very racist, unjust, report that to HR type things happen right in front of me at other companies, but they were owned by an individual who was not checking for that, not really, there was no point in going to HR because you knew nothing was going to happen kind of situation. So I've gone from like very negative situation. a potential for negative situation in other companies where the resources aren't there or the people at the top don't care. To all the opposite, it's 180 here at Freddie, where not only that behavior is not tolerated in any way, shape, or form, but all the way on the other extreme, where they just go above and beyond to, there's an open mind here. There's an open mind about what everyone brings to the table and the fact that everyone can learn something from someone else. But then also just, in marketing, and when you're young, you want to work at a hip company that gives you bagels on Fridays, and you get to wear, Hawaiian shirts on Tuesdays, and you get to have a lot of fun, and marketing is sexy, and you win these awards, and behind a lot of that is frankly a lot of abuse and a lot of toxicity. It's shiny and sexy, and you're burnt out, you're overworked, you're underpaid, you're disrespected, people take credit for your work. That kind of stuff happens. It doesn't need to happen. I wish that I had known about a company. I didn't always live in Virginia, in this area. I wish that I had known companies that existed. And I feel like, if you have a very concrete idea about what an industry or a corporation is, you're only holding yourself back. I wish 10 years ago, I hadn't been so fixed in my mindset that corporations are evil and I'm never going to work for them. So for here, it's more just the total opposite of exclusionary ideas and the total opposite of sidelining people. It's very much, we know there's an understanding that diverse is better. It's better for business. It's better for people. We care how our people feel about their work. We understand that you're a full person and that there's something called being, satisfied, finding success and fulfillment in your job. It's not just a paycheck. It's not just something that you have to do. So that has been really the main differences for me working here versus everywhere else I've ever worked.
You just gave me flashbacks to what it was like working in that industry. But it was also a great learning experience. And let's face it, in everything that we do, having a comms background is going to be critical. And I'm assuming the same thing for Janiece too. You have to have that in your background in order for you to communicate your messages, your products, the spirit of the company as well. So Janiece, you're currently a senior account executive in single family sales and relationship management. Can you share more about your journey to this role? I talked about earlier, you can't be at a company for 22 years and do the same thing. I'm sorry, they would have to lock the windows unless you're being kidnapped. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that movimiento was within the company that allowed you to be there for 22 years? And honestly, that's a real tribute to Freddie Mac, to have your interest and a career path within the company for so long. And I'm assuming you're not done yet. So there's probably other avenues for you to take.
Absolutely. And I'm happy to share. So I began my career at Freddie in my early 20s after graduating from George Mason University with a bachelor's in finance. But I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know what Freddie Mac was. I was actually part of a network group at George Mason called Delta Sigma Pi. It's a business fraternity, a co-ed business fraternity. And I had a friend who worked in HR at Freddie Mac who reached out to me and asked if I wanted to interview. So I remember my first day at Freddie, and I was so impressed. I literally said to myself, this is the place I want to retire. It was very professional. It was very organized. I met with probably 4 or 5 different people in my first interview as a budget analyst. So straight out of college, interviewed for this position, having a finance background, I thought, well, I guess that's where I should start. So I was there for about 2.5 years. And in that journey, I learned about a network group called Hola. And so I associated myself with them mainly because I do speak Spanish. My family's from Colombia. And though I was born here, I do consider myself muy colombiana. And I said, well, let me check out this group. So I started networking and talking to people. And in that journey, I learned of other organizations within Freddie Mac, divisions, departments that I decided to, after being pretty seasoned in my current job as a budget analyst, I moved over to a business analyst position. And I started growing and learning different departments and what they did. So my background is in this journey was from finance to accounting to project management. I've had 7 different jobs in the last 22 years at Freddie Mac, and I feel very blessed and happy to have had that opportunity, because had it not been for those different roles at Freddie Mac, I wouldn't be in the dream job that I've always wanted in sales today. And I can tell you it was very difficult to get this particular position because you do wear many hats. And because I jumped in so many different departments, it actually solidified the experience that I would have needed to be a successful account executive. So even though back then I didn't understand and I didn't know where my journey was going, everyone that I had met, including the OLA network group, said, you need to talk to so-and-so and talk to so-and-so. You should be in marketing or sales. And I said, really? And so I started opening up that tunnel vision of oh, okay, so there is other things besides finance. There's ability to work with clients outside, but I didn't know anything about the consumer and what their needs were. So I had to take a step back in my role or in my journey to really become a support to an account executive. And I was in that role for a good 10 years before I landed this position as an account executive. So my point of this sharing of this journey is that you may come to Freddie Mac and not know where to start, but just land in an opportunity where you can actually learn from others, network with people, because it's like chess. You try to maneuver in a way that you think, ultimately, I want to land in the technology or in the finance or multifamily. You got to talk to people in order to get there. And obviously, in your personal development and in growing and taking courses through the Freddie Mac Training University is key to growing as an individual and helping not only the organization grow, but yourself as well.
Yeah, it sure sounds like Freddie Mac allows you to grow and has the depth to be able to do that. Also, shout out to the importance of ERGs at different companies. It was like you had a welcoming committee that can give you the lay of the land. And that's so important. And the companies that we work with, including Freddie Mac, have a strong ERG group in order for their employees to really grow. It's not just for, some ERG groups, they want to change the menu during Hispanic Heritage Month and, oh, we're good. No, I mean, it has to be something that's actually helping the business, not just the employees socially. So that's good to hear. And I also wonder how many people in our audience right now had heard of Freddie Mac before we reached out to them. That's a good survey question to ask afterwards, because a lot of this is just being able to build that presence in our community that people know that Freddie Mac is an option. And if you've never heard of the company, that's always tough to have as an option, like you. But then you learned about it, and now that's why we do this. So recently, we have seen more and more companies leverage technology for greater productivity and impact on their business models. And Adan, you knew I was going to ask you. I should have pretended to ask Vanessa, and she would have been like, "Oh no, what am I going to say?" So, as the tech lead in the finance division, I imagine you're of even greater value to the company. Let me just put that out there. But can you share about your experience as a tech lead at the company? And also, we do coder summits and a lot of other programs, and we're teaching kids how to code, and we're very active in the coding space and the tech space, not just coding, but the future of work and all these other areas. We find the number one reason why people attend our summits and all these other programs is to be around others that are like me in this field. So hopefully you're not too lonely, as a lot of Latinos in tech are at other companies, but tell us a little bit about that experience as a tech person.
Yes, thank you, Antonio. Well, I want to share something else with the audience. Before joining Freddie Mac, this is in my early years after college, I had the opportunity to work for a small technology company. And I worked towards developing purely technology products, right? So it's very difficult to see how is that ultimate design, let's call it, or product is going to solve somebody's problem, right? Unless you are assigned to a project with a customer. So what I wanted to mention, going to your point, is how is it like? Well, it's exactly that, because what we are doing here is when you're looking as a technology lead, you're not saying, hey, we have to go and use such and such tool. You have to say, let me use the best tool depending on what I'm trying to accomplish. That to me is key, right? So you have the opportunity to say, well, I have either Microsoft technology, Unix-based cloud. Now we're going to the cloud. How that should be applied when it makes sense, and how also should be done in a manner that is not introducing unnecessary risks to the group, right, to finance. That to me is really the value of being in this position of being a technical lead in the finance organization, or even in other group within Freddie. Is technology is not the ultimate goal. Technology is here to help us solve the problems.
That's exactly right. Vanessa, in your current role as multifamily marketing communications senior professional, luckily people don't use business cards that much anymore, because that would take up the entire business card.
Oh, let me tell you.
What is something that you're proud of to be working on right now that helps the community? And I think it's important for people to understand that when you're working at a job where supporting the community is built into the job, it's so much more gratifying. So can you talk a little bit about something that you're working on right now as almost like a case study of helping the community while you're functioning in your job?
So several things. Firstly, I don't believe in like life-work balance. I'm not one person at work and one person at home and one person in the street. Like, I'm the same person everywhere. I believe in, I do my work and I have enough time for work and I have enough time for rest, right? But a lot of that, we're breaking down these barriers of this idea that you have to be this specific kind of person when you're working or at work or with your colleagues. And so for me, that's been huge, because it's like you just said, like, it's fulfilling to me because work is not just part of my life, it's woven into my life, and it's one of the biggest things that matters to me. And I don't feel like I don't have to switch between priorities. Like, when I'm at work, I'm simultaneously doing something good for the company, doing something good for myself, doing something good for Latinos, Latinx, all at the same time. So I'll put that out there. Our division also has started a equity in housing movement, if you will. So like Janiece was mentioning earlier, there's a newly appointed a VP or senior VP in single family who has one job, is to figure out, there's massive inequities that can be documented. That is just the history of the United States, is the reason why we have those discrepancies in home ownership between different groups of people, of cultures. And so we, on our end, we also have a vice president in the multifamily division who was appointed at the same time, around the same time, I believe. And everyone here, in the marketing department and the multifamily division is going to touch that in some way. Of course, it's a new effort. The vice president, she has her team. She's bringing together and kind of going at it with a 360 strategy. My part in building that is going to be obviously helping to integrate this new area of our work into our website. Use it strategically. That landing page. How does it translate into our other marketing channels, across email, across social media, across advertising? And I think there's already at least 15, 20 people behind that one VP who's tasked with, like, hey, this is a problem. It's a problem. There's inequities in rental housing, just as there are in single family housing. How do we understand the problem first and then bring about solutions that actually make a tangible difference? I love it here that no one is trying to pretend like it's not an issue. I know people who work at other companies in the area, or people, who have their senior leadership ignoring social justice, racial justice issues like they don't exist, or people pretend like, the reason why Black and brown people don't have as many houses or don't have as much equitable housing is because it just so happened to fall that way. Like, no, like that was purposefully done and we need to purposefully fix it. So I'm thrilled to be part of that, even my small part of it, because I know it takes so many people coming together to really tackle those challenges.
And we're grateful that you are representing those challenges being met at companies. That's the importance of representation. It comes from the inside. So thank you for that. Janiece, I'm actually very curious right now, and I've made so many mentions of it. In your 22 years at Freddie Mac, you must have seen a lot of people come and go. Obviously, maybe not too many go, but tell us about people that left the company, because you guys are making it sound so great. I would imagine that when they left, they might have thought, wow, maybe it wasn't greener on the other side. Have you had that experience with folks where they're just like, oh my goodness, I want back in? Or what's
yes,
that,
it's funny
what's
you
that
should.
been like?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that. My husband, Rob Worley, has also worked at Freddie Mac for 16 years. About 10 years ago, he pursued another consulting opportunity externally and left Freddie Mac for 3 years. And outside of Freddie, he could not find the work-life balance that he had at Freddie Mac. Juggling we have 2 boys. I didn't see him, it was very difficult. When an opportunity opened at Freddie, however, I sold him, and not really sell him because he knew what was it like prior, but I did continue to sell him because that's what I do. I'm in sales, of the idea of, Freddie Mac, I told you the grass isn't greener, but you learned, and he did learn outside of Freddie, different avenues, if you will. But when an opportunity opened at Freddie Mac that aligned with his professional goals, he jumped at it and was lucky enough to be rehired. He was like what we like to call at Freddie a boomerang Freddie Macker. So yeah, this is actually a very common thing at Freddie. And once you're here, it is hard to want to leave. But if you have to leave for whatever reason, 9 out of 10, you're going to come back.
Wow, that's good to know. Adan, what is a common theme that you have seen at Freddie Mac that continues?
In terms of the culture and the people?
Yes, and the work. I mean, this is the last question besides going to some Q&A questions. So I just wanted to kind of wrap it up with, what are those themes at Freddie Mac that you're seeing from your perspective? And we've touched upon some of them, but pulling them all together.
Yes, one of the most important factors that I have when I compare it to other companies is the fact that the ethic and the culture here is very strong. Everybody wants to do a good job in the company. Everybody is doing their best. And to me, that's the number one reason that has kept me here in the company is the people. And it is true. Before coming to Freddie, I can also share this with the audience. I work in another organization that was very diverse. This is an international organization, the World Bank. And I can see that Freddie Mac is almost as diverse as that place. And from that point of view, I do believe that is one of the most valuable assets that we have in the company, the diversity and the people.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear, especially coming from the World Bank. Just the name has the word world in it, and you still come to a place that you feel very comfortable in terms of the diversity there. All right, so I'm going to ask Linda to join us for the Q&A. We are really moving through this, which is a real testament to the compelling statements by our panelists. And this is fantastic. And I've really learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody in the audience has as well. But one of the questions that we have, and this is a huge question that we get asked over and over again by young people in our network, especially young people that have overcome a lot in their trajectory. Have you experienced imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you overcome it?
Can I jump in there? Because
Yeah, anybody who wants to jump in for any of these, jump in. But this is a real one. So
Yeah.
please be real in your answer.
No, totally. I'm not capable of not being real.
I know, that's why I knew you'd go first.
I'm glad that that's a question. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to answer it. Number one, I'm a very confident person by nature. However, I'm also aware that, there's a lot of things that I don't know. I know what I bring to the table, but I also know, okay, now I'm in this industry, I'm in this environment for the first time. And so for me, the little bit of imposter syndrome that I could possibly feel was diminished by the fact that nobody has ever, not once, spoken down to me or been condescending about me not knowing something about finance. I know everything. I know almost everything about marketing. I can teach a marketing class, but I wasn't born knowing finance. I didn't come from finance. And they still chose me to be hired for this role, right? So the people I report to, they know I can do the job. They believe I can do the job. And then everyone else in this division, when I have questions, when I need to learn, nobody's out here trying to make you feel small because you don't know what they know about the industry or about the company. So yes, imposter syndrome is real, but the people at Freddie Mac, we keep going back to that resource. The people here are the ones who help you to mitigate that feeling where, you don't feel good enough. Kind of like what Linda was sharing, Elijah's quote earlier. You know what I mean? I'm not Latino enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. It's natural, but this is the kind of place where you easily are able to put that aside because you have good people around you. Like me.
Did anybody else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I like to weigh in. This is Linda. So I know that even to tag along with what Vanessa was saying, I think something that's helped me in this organization. So I've been here for almost 5 years, and the significant difference that I've felt working at Freddie Mac in comparison to my former large corporates and small corporations is the Latino community. The Latino community, let me go back a little bit. So prior to the Latino community, I didn't really have a big network of Latinos prior to joining Freddie Mac. I had a lot of Latino friends, but I was just more, I had a variety of different types of ethnic backgrounds. And it wasn't until I came to Freddie Mac where I plugged in to the Latino community is where I felt so comfortable to actually share the internal struggles that I had. I had mentors and just friends that could relate to me, but that would also help me and connect me to other resources. And even through that, I've never had the sponsorship, people talking, to other people about possible roles for me for my future. So I've never really had that before. And it wasn't until I had this Latino community from all different levels within the company. So that really helped me just to actually, because sometimes we have it in our heads and it stays in our head. And the stories that we tell us that we're not good enough, that we're not excellent enough, whatever it is, that we're not valuable or we don't add value, it's all a lie, right? So it wasn't until that I had these great relationships with people, with men and women that were Latino, that I was able to be and they were able to help me and draw me out. So that was a major difference that I saw from other companies and those relationship resources that I do at Freddie Mac.
Yeah, and once again, the importance of having that employee resource group, OLA. That'll help with that. I'm sorry, did you want to weigh in, Janiece?
Yeah, no, I was thinking just that. I mean, like I said, when I came 22 years ago to Freddie, probably year 4 is when I said to myself, sales is a place I want to be. But I had doubts of how I was going to be able to succeed because I didn't have the experience or the knowledge of the consumer, of the borrower, the not so much the client. Our clients are banks, right? We were not allowed by charter to talk to consumers out there. So our clients are the banks, independent mortgage bankers. And so to feel confident in talking to a president or a CEO of a bank, you really need to gather a lot of experience. And so for me to get to Z, I had to start at A and start networking and meeting people. And I don't think that was luck per se. It was more a drive to want to get to where I wanted to get to, which is ultimately sales. And it did take quite some time to get there, but I pushed and I got to know people and I made friends, and they constantly reconfirmed that I should be in sales and that, you're wanting to help people. You just need to know the knowledge base of where the client is coming from and also where Freddie Mac's coming from. So my point is that, I don't think anything is luck. I think you have to drive for what you want in life and don't be afraid to ask questions. Talk to people, mingle, don't be in just your little cubicle and do your work. Get out there and talk to people, because that's when you're really going to find that your dreams will be realized soon.
Yeah, that's important to know. It's complicated, right? That feeling of do you belong? So again, it's great that you have people there that look and sound like you, because that makes it easier to feel like you belong. So this next question is, I think, a very specific question to the process in case someone wants to get a job there. What is the typical recruitment life cycle for some of these roles? And you can all weigh in if you want.
I mean, I don't know if someone on the back end is going to be able to answer the question or is able to join audio or visual, but for me, my process was very fast, honestly, for such a big company. I joined the company on a contract, and even in a contract role and in that position, I was very surprised by the fact that Freddie was offering a 2-year contract. That's not common, I don't think, in any contracting capacity, but especially not in this area. To me, it showed that Freddie understood that people need stability, and they were willing, even though it was a contract position, they were willing to have it for 2 whole years, because it's you come and work here, whether you're on a contract or not, you're in this building, you're working with Freddie people, you're furthering the mission. And I just felt, I was very surprised by that in a good way. To me, it said a lot about the company. And then when I converted into, from contracting to direct hire position, the same. It was very seamless. It was very quick, no nonsense. In HR, my experience with recruiters and my questions and kind of how things were supposed to play out was all very, very well done, very pleasant and very natural, organic feeling. Don't know if anybody else has something to add.
Mine was such a long time ago. I'm just trying to remember. I do remember just walking into this beautiful building, and there was multiple buildings, but it was just very well structured, well organized. It was very timely. They did share a lot of information and the benefits that Freddie Mac offers to the prospective employee. And I just remember just wanting to hurry back home and just dive into all the benefits. And because I was so already sold on the idea of working there, and I really enjoyed meeting the manager and the team, but I really wanted to understand what else does Freddie Mac offer, from the gymnasium to the wellness center to a beautiful cafeteria and multiple cafeterias. I mean, I felt like I was at home. Just if I were sick, I can go and the wellness center and see if I, had a temperature of some kind. I felt like everything was right there. And I just remember it being so well organized. And the people, ultimately, what's really made me stay for 22 years is the people. because it's huge. It's a huge sell on why I've stayed, not just because of the benefits, but also the people make it worthwhile.
Thank you. So Juan Torres has a question, and he said, how does management and the leadership handle situations when things are off track? What is the philosophy of Freddie Mac in maintaining positive feedback loops to make sure things are on track and effective?
So I would like to speak from our perspective in finance. So we do have process in place how to manage risk, right? So things can get off track, yes, but we typically plan to make sure that we have a course of action if that happens, right? So it is clear whose responsibility is when something is off, let's say, when we're talking about financial statements. What we are very interested is on making sure that our results are accurate. So if something seems to be off, then we already have, as I was mentioning, a process in place to make sure that we correct that. And we do have, I don't want to use the word controls, but that's what it is. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring regularly if, let's say, there are some information, some data that is not matching. So from that perspective, I would say that we don't have huge surprises like, oh my gosh, now this is completely off. Now what do we do? So there's a plan in place for those instances in finance.
Anyone else want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, from a single family division, we're always trying to communicate and make sure that all the areas and departments talk to each other. If there's something that, wasn't prepared or whatever reason, we always try to get into a huddle and try to discuss this, whether now virtually or when we were in the office, inform our, not only our management levels, but above them and below them. So it was really just to ensure communication was broadcasted across the areas, just to make sure everyone was on the same page as to how to either react to the whatever issue or challenge, whether that be external or internal.
I'd like to share something. I know that something that's really stood out working at Freddie Mac is how from the top leadership, their communication, like during COVID, weekly meetings. And within the division and departments, there was so much communication because a lot of it was we were uncertain, right? There was a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, and a lot of fear that we're going to stay with our jobs. And one of the things that was so amazing was the CEO and his leadership team kept us in the loop with everything. And it opened up channel, and they were encouraged, the leadership within our own divisions and departments, and then we're encouraged to have those open and honest conversations, to be transparent and to share emotions. So they, from the top, they actually bring that culture in to have those transparent conversations, and it just feels so good because then you know that whether it be a business related or internal issue or things are going off track, they're gonna address it. We're gonna quickly, and we're gonna communicate it, and we're gonna find solutions. And I think that is just a great, as an employee, it gives you great confidence and makes you very proud to work for a company that's not putting things on the back burner, but things are front and center as they come up, dealing with it effectively and efficiently with great communication. So I'm very proud to say that Freddie Mac has done that so well before COVID and especially during COVID.
I was going to add
good.
quickly. Oh.
No, please go ahead, Vanessa.
In the marketing space, a lot of it is like, oh my gosh, that typo went out in that email, or oh my gosh, we had this collateral for this event and it looked great on screen, but then it got printed and it was ugly color and it's totally off. Here we share responsibility. We have a lot of checks and balances in place to, we have each other's back and try to prevent anything from going off track or or going out to external audiences that has an error or has a problem. But when it does happen, like we're not sitting here like, okay, that was your responsibility, so that's your fault. It's really like, okay, if there was a typo in that email, 5 people saw that email, so it was all of our fault. What can we learn from this, and how can we change, even the details of our workflow processes to prevent that from happening again?
Thanks, everyone. That was a really good question, Juan, by the way. Obviously, got a good response from everyone. So the last question we have for speakers is, what advice would you give your younger self or to someone in the audience for their professional and personal growth?
I'll speak. I would just say to my younger self who is just coming in to don't be afraid, don't be intimidated by what you see, or because there's just diversity everywhere, which is fantastic, but don't stay quiet. Speak up when you've got in a room of 20 or 30 people or 10 people or 5 people. Try to be the first one to ask questions. Push yourself, lean in and ask those questions. Don't wait until after the meeting. And I think because I started so young, I was shy at first. I didn't know what I didn't know. So I would just say we all have a voice, and being Latino or Latina makes your voice, very impactful, because everyone wants to hear what you have to say, whether you're young, old, Latina, Latino, not Latino. You just have to speak up, because that's really the name of the game on how to succeed.
Yeah, what I would say to my younger self or any person is know your innate strengths, like what you're naturally good at, because anyone can develop skills, right? Anyone can develop a learned skill, but tap into your natural strengths, because you'd be surprised of when you do that, the confidence that you can bring to the table by just the strength that you were born with. Because then you can then based on that, you can actually get a vision for where you want to land, right? And as you're getting that vision, so doing a lot of a self-assessment early on would have been very helpful. And then once I have that assessment, and then I have a vision of where I want to go, surround yourself with trusted advisors in your company and outside your company. And those are the people that are going to mentor you, they're going to coach you, and they're going to possibly be your sponsor for future openings in the company. So be intentional about those things. Like, get a game plan and figure that out, but don't do it yourself. I think that one of the things that I see Latinos, especially Latinos, is we're really great at building community, but be doing it intentionally. Like, if you want to get, like when you heard some of the panelists talk about, they wanted to be like Janiece wanted to be in sales, like, then go and network with the salespeople, rub elbows with those leaders, those hiring managers, right? So, and then develop those trusted, and even if you get a no, or if the doors close, just persevere. Like, don't give up. It's like, keep knocking, let your vision drive you despite what's happening at the moment. So that's what I'll share.
Good. Anybody else?
After high school, growing up in New York City, seeing the rat race, that was my only view of the world. Like, I didn't realize that the world could be different. And I had very, concrete ideas that were wrong. I was wrong about corporations. There are corporations in the world that aren't evil, like, go figure. I thought I knew everything, it was, you're either up or you're down, you're either in or you're out. Like, it was very black and white. And I put boxes in my own mind. And so I would just tell my younger self not to do that. And that, if you don't do that and you do the opposite, where you realize there's more that you don't know than you do know, then you're opening yourself up to possibilities. Like, what's going to make you happy? What I thought was going to make me happy was being a book editor, and I was wrong. I got what I wanted. I finished my master's. I was a book editor at a publishing company, and I was so bored and I hated it. So just keep your mind open, that you don't know as much as you think you do, and you don't even know yourself as well as you think you do. Just keep your mindset open.
Yes, Antonio, I'd like to just add to what was mentioned before. So important what Linda indicated. Often because we're just out of college, we haven't worked yet. And the idea that we have of the real world might be different. So it's very key to tap into what is my natural ability, my strengths, and what I like. When you do that, everything else will fall into place, right? So you kind of need to look inside of yourself and follow your own path, right? Perhaps if it's technology, but perhaps it's more financial analysis, but that will guide you. And also what I wish I had done is perhaps have a stronger mentors. And I think Freddie does that really well. When I started my career, well, I didn't have that. Just have someone who is very genuine and can really tell you and provide that wisdom, right, is very important.
Janiece?
I like to, oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I echo everything that the panel has said. Just, don't be afraid to speak up. A mentor of mine always said, be yourself, and I took that to heart. Not that I wasn't, but sometimes you see somebody who, you want to mirror. Point is, just be yourself. Just because somebody does it one way doesn't mean you have to copy them, whether that be interacting with people or how to get to solve a problem in a specific way. Just be yourself, be your authentic self, because that will open doors significantly when you're genuinely who you are and not what maybe somebody else is.
Yeah, and to go off a little bit off of that, how do you discover that, right? Those are questions that I've actually in the last several years. How do you discover that is finding out what gives you the most energy, right? Start paying attention, start having some self-awareness of what naturally brings you energy. Is it with people? Is it solving problems? What is it? Start paying attention starting today. Like, when things come up, like how do you resolve issues? How do you interact with people? Because then that may guide you, and then get a coach because that may guide you because you don't want to be someone you're not. It's like once you know that natural energy and what pulls you, and I've just discovered that even though I lived it, when I think back, I was like, wow, I just discovered that maybe like 2 years ago. And so my path is now a little bit changing to what I thought I wanted to do coming into Freddie Mac. So that energy is part of your North Star that may help you in finding out what would be a great fit for you. And then from there, then you tag on those trainings and those things that you may want to fulfill to get to where you want to be.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's very, very good advice. I've always told people the same thing. It's like, make choices. Those that give you energy, keep them. People that take energy away from you, ignore them. And definitely be yourself. It's a lot less complicated than trying to be somebody else. Okay, so that will do it. Thank you all for joining us. Again, big thanks to Sarah Crump and the entire Freddie Mac team. And of course, to the Freddie Mac panelists we've gotten to know. I feel like I've got 4 new friends. Actually, and that's a great feeling. Linda, Janiece, Vanessa, Aran, thank you. Thank you for sharing yourselves. This was not just giving us corporate speak. Like, you guys actually shared what you feel, what have you felt, and the environment. So thank you for that. In and out of the office. We're thrilled to work together with Freddie Mac to make an impact on our community and our workforce. And to the audience, thank you for joining us. Our team will be in communication with you for follow-up. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your day.